Welcome everyone to the first of the series of online marketing webinars that we plan on running. Today we are going to be talking about your online presence and all that makes up your online presence. So your online presence is incredibly important for your business and for you personally as well. Okay, so your online presence is what connects you with whoever your target audience is. And your online presence is made up of your website, your email marketing, social media, your digital advertising, search engine optimization, and online reviews. Essentially, these are going to be what we'll be talking about today in a bit of detail. Future webinars that we're planning are going to do a deep dive into each of these areas. But at least today we're going to paint a very big, broad picture so that you know that if you're taking your business online, these are the things that you need to consider. Now, before you start, you have to secure your brand. So whatever your brand is, whatever your business name is going to be, you have to secure it on the different platforms. So firstly, get your domain. So in Australia, your most powerful TLD, they're called top level domains, are .com.au and .com. Okay, so if you're looking at a vanity URL like .sydney or .agency or .firm or whatever the case may be, they're great for social media, they're great for paid advertising, but as far as building up your organic presence and for you to be found easily by Google, the .com.au gives you the most relevant local presence. It basically announces to Google that I am an Australian business, and the .com is just as powerful. We've been able to position websites that had a .com TLD just as well as .com.au. But what we say is secure the .net.au and also secure the .net, because even if you might not use them, you want to make sure your competitors don't use them as well. And then jump on Google and get a Gmail address, because that's going to be important for you to set up all your reporting, like your Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Tag Manager, your Google Maps listing, your Google My Business. All of that tethers on and depends on you having a Gmail address. Then jump on your socials and get your username. Some social media platforms will need you to have a certain number of followers first before you get that. But get that because it makes it easy for you to be found. And then secure a couple of blog sites. So Blogspot is Google's platform, and then WordPress is the world's biggest blogging platform. Now, firstly, your website. Everything starts and ends with your website. So before you start looking at social media or email marketing or SEO or anything, your website is what you need to be thinking about first. Essentially, your website becomes a 24/7 sales tool for you. It's your salesperson that's out there selling on your behalf. So it becomes very important for your business. I promise you that if you're talking to clients, if you're tendering for projects, when you leave the room, people are jumping on your website to see what you're about. So what makes up a good website? And what approach do you need to take? You need to take a long-term approach. So what we mean by that is, if you plan on becoming a much bigger business, don't go down the path of Wix or Squarespace. But if you just need a quick online presence, by all means, go down that path. But what you're doing with those platforms is you're sharing that infrastructure with a lot of other businesses. When we say take a long-term approach, we mean think about having your own website, your own installation put together for you by a web designer. And there's a lot of web design firms out there that are affordable, and there's ones that are highly customized and will create just exactly the kind of website that you need. Think about your goals. What do you want to achieve with your website? Is it just an online brochure, or is it a lead generator for you? Think about your goals, your objectives for success. What does success mean to you? Success for an online retailer will be very different to a tourism operator. One may be all about brand awareness, and the other one might be just all about online sales. Do you want phone calls? Do you want people to chat with you? Do you want them to send you a booking request or a contact form request? Whatever that success means to you, you need to be clear on that first, because that will decide the direction for you on how the website looks and feels. What are the calls to action? That's what we were talking about. Do you want people to buy from you? Do you want them to call you? It's amazing the amount of businesses that we've worked with that said phone calls are the most important thing for me and my business, and yet their phone number was nowhere to be found in an obvious place, like you had to go and navigate to find it. But put it in the header, make it obvious. Research the keywords that your customers are using. So always work with your customer in mind. Rather than using your own jargon and your own language, use their language. Use the words that they're researching and they are looking for when they connect with you. In terms of web design, you have a lot of options. Like I said, you've got your DIY web builders like Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, Shopify, BigCommerce. They have their time and place, and if you're just starting out, they are absolutely ideal. But I promise you that if your business grows and becomes significant, which I hope that with a good online presence it will, you're going to need to change over and have your own build. Number two, you've got your templates. So you can jump on Template Monster or Theme Forest, and you can download a ready-made website. The only downside to that is that it will look very similar to a lot of others that have used the same template. But again, that can be customized as well. It can cut down your costs on how much the designer would need to do. You can have a custom open source CMS. So CMS is a content management system. Biggest example is WordPress. It's one of the biggest ones in the world. It's very easy to use, but a content management system means that you don't need to go to a developer every time you need to make changes. And then finally, you've got the completely customized websites where a designer will wireframe it for you and they'll build it from complete scratch. The advantage of that last option, even though it is the most costly of the four, is that you get exactly what you want. It's like designing your own house as opposed to building a project home. You can design it exactly how you want, have the layout exactly how you want, and all the calls to actions, and you can build your own apps and custom features. Tips for a great website. Firstly, prioritize user experience. Google did a massive study a few years ago where they found that users were preferring a simple design, simply designed website rather than complex layout. Make sure that the structure is obvious. If you've got services, make sure they're laid out properly in the top menu and easy to get to. Make it easy for customers to get around your website. Otherwise, I promise you they're going to bounce off and you're going to lose them. Have a simple design rather than complex and just easy to navigate. A simple design not only makes it easy for customers to get around your website, but it makes it also easy for Google to get around your website and pick up any new pages that you create. Site speed is incredibly, incredibly important. Site speed is one of the most important ranking factors for Google. So if you're trying to show up in Google in a prominent position to attract customers and your website is loading slowly, then Google will penalize you. Their sole purpose with their search engine results page is to serve up websites and advertisers that are going to give their users the best possible experience. So make sure you think about your site speed. A very simple tool to use to check for site speed is Google's Page Speed Insights. So if you jump in Google and you type Page Speed Insights, you'll be able to see how your website is performing, and Google will even give you recommendations on how to improve the site speed. Above the fold, if you've ever worked in advertising or media, above the fold used to refer to newspapers and magazines and what was above the fold from the middle up. In the digital space, above the fold is basically from your first page that you're looking at and up. The reason above the fold is so important is because you need to be putting your most important information in that space above the fold. So if you want people to call you, you need to have your phone number in the header right at the top where it can be seen. If you need someone to fill out a contact form, don't bury the contact form at the bottom of the page or on some contact us page that people will struggle to get to. Put it there. Put a quick inquiry form above the fold on the front page or your service pages. Always keep SEO. SEO is search engine optimization in mind, and we're going to get into a deep dive in that. SEO will help you connect with your customers if you do it the right way. And then frequently update your website. Google looks favorably on webmasters and website owners that are constantly updating their website, whether it's updating, product information or, uploading an article. Google will always come back to your website more frequently if it knows that there's to be new, fresh content. So static websites are a thing of the past. So even if you just want your website to be a brochureware that your customers refer to, don't leave it static. Email marketing. So email marketing is the best way for you to keep a conversation going between your business and your customers, your audience. Websites, which is where we started, infamous for being very poor converters. You'll be lucky to get 1 to 2% of the site visitors coming to your website converting to an engagement, to a phone call or some sort of lead. What email marketing does for you is it continues the conversation long after they've left the website. It's cost effective. It's got a very high return on investment. The cost can be kept quite low, and the lead that you get out of an email that you send out is money for jam, because you're not paying for it, and you get a nice conversion from there. You get a very engaged, opted-in audience because they've seen your brand before, they've engaged with you somehow before, and they've chosen to be part of your mailing list. Then you've got a very high chance of converting them. You'll have the ability to segment and target your market through email marketing better than most other channels. So you can have individual mailing lists for people that have shown interest in a particular part of your business, and that's so easy to do. And then depending on the platform that you use, you can set up automation. We worked with a law firm once where they were sending a welcome email to every client every time they subscribed to their newsletter. And so when we went in there, we showed them that you can create an autoresponder. So every time someone subscribes, they get a thank you email for subscribing. And then part of the automation, you can plan out your sequence of emails. So you could say, if someone signs up today, the first email is a welcome email, or it could be a giveaway. You could send them a voucher or an ebook. But then the second email could come out in a week's time, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, then 4 weeks. So you can create a sequence of emails so that you're not manually sending emails out every time. Now, to get started, make sure you're very clear on what your budget is. Budget is important because it determines how much work you can do in terms of design, which platforms you can use, and what your limits are. So keep that in mind, because you might need some resources. And the resources that you might need, you need to think about, do you have an in-house designer that can create email templates for you? Most of the email templates need to be done in HTML format, where you can dictate what the layout looks like, what images go where. So you might need a designer, whether it's internal or external. You're going to need a content writer. So it could be yourself, could be someone in your team, or it could be an external copywriter that you engage. So that's a very important resource, because that content writer is going to be speaking for your brand. They're an extension of your brand. They're an extension of your voice of your brand. And so they need to be very well briefed. Ideally, you want it to be someone internal, but if not, you need to engage a professional content writing agency that can properly speak on your behalf. What support do you need? Depending on what support you're after, it will determine which platform you end up choosing, because some will have better support than others. With email marketing, you need to think about the integration. So what other platforms are you using that you can integrate with? Our webinar software here integrates with MailChimp. You can have a sales reporting software like Salesforce or Pipedrive that can connect into email marketing platforms as well. Websites can integrate with email marketing platforms. So really think about that. What sort of integrations you're going to need, because that will determine which platform works better for you than others. And then finally, what special features do you need? One special feature that comes to mind is A/B testing. There's sites that you can use that allow you to do A/B testing. So in marketing in general and in online marketing, it's not an exact science. Just because you send out one email doesn't mean that it's going to magically convert and be very good for you. You might need to send out two of the same emails, but have a very slight variation. It could be a certain wording or a different offer or a different layout, but really test it and work out which one works best for you. So that's a special feature that you need to consider before you decide on which platform to use. So before you start, make sure you plan it out, have a purpose, have a goal for what you want your email marketing to do. We talked about automation before. The good thing about automation is you can actually plan the sequence of emails and think about what you want that sequence of emails to say. Remember, oftentimes people are subscribing to you for the first time, and so you don't sell to them right away. You want to be building up your sequence of emails so that they trust you. Depending on the nature of your business, there's certain things that you might need to say first. If you're in professional services, you might want to be sharing articles and blogs first, and earn their trust before you sell your services. Think about quality. So quality, we're talking about the quality of the lists. Don't buy lists. And I'll say this again, don't buy lists. We've seen so many businesses that have been banned from these email marketing platforms because they had old, outdated lists. And so what happens is a lot of the emails will bounce, or people don't expect emails from you, and so they'll unsubscribe. And if there's a very high unsubscribe rate or a high bounce rate, that will get flagged with that email marketing platform, and then they could kick you out and ban you. Be aware of your obligations under the Anti-Spam Act. So read the Act and just make sure that you're not spamming people, that you're protecting their privacy, and that you're sharing information and emailing people when they've given you permission, which relates to the previous point. And finally, analyze and adjust. A lot of these email marketing platforms have very good analytics aspects to them. So, look at the open rates, look at if you've put links in your emails, look at what percentage of people are clicking through to your website, because all of that determines whether one email is better than another. Social media marketing. Social media is where your customers are at. Everyone is using social media. 75 to 80% of 74% of Australian companies invest in social media, and 71% of the Australian population are actively using social media. Okay, so social media isn't, I mean, it depends on the business, but generally social media is an engagement and a brand awareness tool rather than a lead generator. So don't make the mistake of using Facebook or Instagram just to generate leads. Look at it as a backup for other acquisition strategies that you might have, and look at it as a way to build awareness for your brand. Use it as a way to listen to your market. That's what social listening is. Engage with them, ask them questions, get them to comment, get them to give you their feedback. If there's a lot of businesses out there like your Qantases of the world and Telstras. They use their social media as a form of customer service. So rather than sit back and let people complain without being answered, they actually follow up and they use it as a way to service their customers and listen to them. So social listening is incredibly important. Social media is also great for website traffic and sending people to your website. And generally that's where they'll be converted, because they'll get to see your services, they'll get to see what you're about, and your testimonials. But it has become more than ever before important for SEO. So search engine optimization, basically your ability to rank in Google, is heavily influenced by SEO, by social media. So Google will look for how many times people are mentioning your brand, how many times they're commenting, sharing. They call them social signals. So the number of social signals that you have will positively impact your ability to rank in Google. So if you're running an SEO campaign at the moment and you don't have an active social media campaigns at the same time, think about having a stronger presence there. So which channels do I choose to go on for my business? Think about what your objectives are. So if it is lead generation, if it is brand awareness, where do I want to be? Which platform is going to be the most appropriate for me? Think about where your audience is. If you're in tourism, Instagram and Facebook might be the way to go. If you're a photographer, you need to look for channels where your customers are looking at images like Instagram or Pinterest. What are your competitors using? What platforms are they on? And what type of content do you want to create? Some platforms are better for certain type of content than others. So if you're in professional services and you're sharing articles and thought leadership pieces, then LinkedIn and Twitter might be your best platforms. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how many channels can you actively and realistically manage at the same time. There's no point having a presence on all of the channels if you're maybe updating one or two every now and then. So be active, be consistent, and be realistic. So always show authenticity. Don't pretend to be something that you're not, because your personality and your brand will shine through, and you'll attract just the right type of people that are best suited for your business. Always encourage engagement. So the biggest mistake of social media marketing is that businesses focus on the marketing aspect rather than the social aspect. And the social aspect is so much more powerful than just selling at people. Be responsive, answer questions. Like I said before, treat it almost like a customer service desk, and be professional. Remember, everything that you write on there, is representative of your brand. And deliver content constantly and consistently. These are some great tools that you can use. Kickstarter is a great one for building up your followers. Canva is absolutely awesome for creatives. So you can create a lot of your posts through Canva. And Animoto is a great video maker, video editor. And these are just examples. There's so many apps out there. SEO, my favorite topic. SEO is one of the biggest ways that a business can generate leads for itself. So SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it's basically the art of convincing Google that you deserve to be in one of these natural positions. So this isn't the ads. So the one that has ad next to it is Google AdWords. This is what influences your website and your web pages to be ranked organically like this. So it's basically the natural organic rankings. The higher you're positioned, depending on the market, depending on the keyword, the higher you're positioned, the more visible you are, and the more click-throughs that you get through to your website. Different keywords have a different volume of searches, of monthly searches, how many people are looking for them. And so you really need to look at all the different keywords that people are looking for and try to get positioned as high as possible. They're ideal for businesses that are highly researched because you don't always just want to be paying for the paid traffic for people that are researching. SEO, so why does it matter? Why is it important? The majority of website traffic comes from search engines. Anecdotally, as well as the numbers that we've seen through all the websites we've worked on in the last 10 years, will tell us that 80 to 85% of traffic that comes to your website will come from organic search. Organic results tend to be more credible, and they tend to have a better click-through, and they tend to have a better engaged audience. We talk about a number called bounce rate. So a bounce is when someone lands on your website, they come through to your website, and then they bounce off without taking any action. We tend to find that with paid traffic, you'll have a much higher bounce rate than what you would if someone came through organic search. Remember, with SEO, with Google's natural search results, you're basically putting a listing for your website and trying to connect with customers at their time of need. So at the point where they've got a problem and they're looking for a solution, you're going to be there positioned, and you'll often stay there for long periods of time unless a certain niche gets competitive. The top three results will generate the lion's share of the traffic, about 40%. Of the click-throughs that come through to websites will come from the top three positions. But you really generally need to be in the top 5 positions for the best results. It is relatively low cost, and the results are very quantifiable. Again, it depends on your business and what an engagement or a conversion is to you and what return on investment means to you. You should be able to easily quantify those leads and that return. They are long-term results, and we'll often work with a business for a year to 2 years, and then if we stop, we look back and they're still positioned highly. So SEO is one of the best ways for you to promote your business. So the basics, how do you get up the rankings? That's the $1 million question. It comes down to 2 things, and these are our 2 pillars of SEO. Firstly, you have to be relevant, and then secondly, you have to be prominent. So relevance means that you won't show up for a keyword in Google unless you talk about it. Okay, so I'm not going to show up, so Web Eagles is not going to show up for estate lawyer Sydney because we don't talk about it at all, right? So that's the first step. Make sure you talk about it. You create a page just for that keyword or keywords. Then become a topic authority. So become an authority on that topic and write articles, write blogs related to that particular topic. Make sure the keywords are in the right places. And in future webinars, we will talk about SEO in greater depth and exactly what to do. But this is giving you the broad brush strokes of what you need to know. So have them in the meta tags, have them in the main heading and the content and the copy. And with your articles, make sure you link internally. So we call this the Wikipedia concept. If you've ever been on Wikipedia and you've read an article, you'll know that there's certain words will get hyperlinked. So if you've looked up dogs and cavoodles, so I've got 2 cavoodles, and you look at the word cavoodle that's mentioned inside dogs as a type of dog, that word will be hyperlinked. So when you click it, you go through to a page that talks about cavoodles. Same thing with your business and your website. That particular word that is related to the page that you're linking to needs to be related. Like it actually needs to indicate to Google that the page that you're going to go to is about this particular topic. And that will improve your Google rankings as well. Then we talk about prominence. So once you've established a good website, good structure, keywords in the right places, you've started writing articles regularly, you then need to be known. You need to be seen externally outside of the website. So you need social media signals, which we talked about before, reviews. So when we talk about online reviews, we don't just mean Facebook reviews, we also mean Google reviews. If you sell products, there's sites like Trustpilot.com and ProductReview.com. If you're in hospitality or tourism, sites like TripAdvisor, Foursquare, all of these sites are incredibly important for you to build an online reputation. Then create online citations. So citation is basically citing your business details in the context of your web address, your URL. So jump on directories, business directories, local directories, web directories, and create a listing for your business and link it back to your website as well, and cite your address details in there, because that will impact your Google Maps listings for your business. In fact, all of these are tied in together. If you've got really positive reviews and you're mentioned everywhere in terms of your address and your URL, then you've got a very good chance of moving up into the top 3 Maps listings. And then backlinks. Backlinks is the magic word that everyone uses in SEO. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You've got to be very selective about which sites you link back from. But oftentimes, if you write articles and you share them on article sites or industry publications and you link back to your site, that'll have a very positive effect on your rankings as well. To optimize for Google, make sure, firstly, that your website is crawlable. So what that means is look for any broken links. If there's any links that aren't working, make sure they're fixed, because that stops Google from crawling the site properly. In the old days, there used to be Flash that used to be used, and that's been phased out since. But that used to stop the site from being crawled by Google. And just having the right structure. A really good tip for you, make sure that your top menu of your website is replicated at the bottom as well. And what that does is, essentially what Google is doing is they're sending out little bots, little software bots that crawls all of these websites and then indexes all the pages. The links on your website is how they get around your website from page to page. So by putting a link at the top in the main menu and then replicating it in the bottom menu, you allow them to crawl your website better. Make sure the site is mobile friendly. So always build your website with mobile first. So the jargon or the term in online marketing is responsive. So if you're working with a web designer, make sure you insist on them making your website responsive, which means it responds to whatever device that it's on. We talked about page speed before, so make sure your website is loading as quickly as possible for the best user experience. Search intent. So we commonly get asked, and I can't believe in this day and age we get asked that, can we just put the writing in invisible ink in white writing on white background so that no one can see it, but we can put all the keywords in there. Don't do that, please, because Google picks up on that. You're up against a company full of PhDs who know a lot better than us, so don't try to trick them. Always write content with the user in mind, and Google will reward you for it. And then obviously build good quality backlinks and good authority backlinks back to your website. Google My Business, I mentioned that before in terms of listings. Google My Business is a very, very important tool for you to build trust with your market and with Google. So literally go into Google and type Google My Business, and it'll come up and it'll ask you to register your business. You'll get a postcard in the mail, and then you verify it, you put the code in, and all of a sudden you've got a listing. The good thing about this is that you can't show up in the Google Maps unless you've got a Google My Business account. And the Google My Business account allows you to control your message to the market. You can do things like, your trading hours, your address, your service area. So if you cover a certain territory, you can define it in here so that you only show up for that market. And then most importantly, your reviews. Encourage people to leave your reviews, because this becomes a very important aspect of your brand and a good tool for your brand. Digital advertising. Okay, so digital advertising or paid advertising has its time and place. I know I've been advocating for organic search and making sure that you have a strong organic presence on Google and on social media. But digital advertising has its time and place because it can get you traffic now. It can get you leads now to your business. The different types of paid advertising include video ads. So you'll see them at the start of videos on YouTube. You've got display advertising, which we'll get into a little bit more detail. Paid search within Google and Bing. So both of them are an option. Social media advertising. Remarketing, retargeting, we'll talk a little bit later about that, but essentially it's if someone has shown any intent to your business and they've visited your website, you can continue to remarket to them. Search engine marketing. It's another term that agencies often use for Google AdWords. Okay, so the Google AdWords is essentially the top 4 listings that you'll see at the top of the search engine results page. It is a bid for position. So each word that you pursue has a cost per click. Okay, so if you're prepared to pay whatever that maximum cost per click is, then you can end up at number 1 at the top of Google. You need to be very careful with it because it can get very expensive if you don't do it the right way. But essentially, what the aim of AdWords is, or search engine marketing, paid advertising on Google, is to take up as much real estate as possible as you can on the page, and then drive people to your website. Each keyword is defined by a quality score. So the quality score is affected by the quality of the ad itself and whether it contains the keyword, quality of the page that you're driving people to, the quality of your accounts. If you've got a bad history with Google, then that could affect the quality score. And what ends up happening is if your quality score is too low, then you could end up paying too much for your budget and not get as many leads back. It's got a very high level of user intent. They're usually at their time of need looking to buy now, and they can give you immediate results. So within a week, you should start getting traffic to your website and potentially leads to the business. It's very measurable and it's controllable. We talked about remarketing before. Have you ever been in a position where you've just been thinking about a home loan or thinking about buying a house, and all of a sudden all the banks are advertising to you and you see an ad everywhere for a home loan or cars or insurance or whatever the case may be? What they're doing is they're remarketing to you, which means that when someone lands on your website, you have the ability to collect their IP address, and then when they leave, and they haven't converted, they haven't engaged with the business, then as they're surfing the web, you end up showing your display ads to them. So you can control this inside your AdWords account. And that works hand in hand with display advertising. And essentially what it is, it's a banner ad or a lead ad like that at the top. It's part of the Google Display Network. So Google Display Network is essentially a wholesaler of advertising inventory for a lot of these sites. So you have the ability for a very low fee to Google, a low cost per click or cost per 1,000 views, of being seen on sites like the Australian, Sydney Morning Herald, car sales, realestate.com, without having to pay those sites directly the big dollars. Display advertising is great for brand awareness. Generally, it's not a lead generator, but it's good for people connecting with your brand. And it's a good backup for SEO and for AdWords. It's got a very low cost per click, and it's a good way to get your brand message across, or any new products that you're trying to promote. Native advertising we'll skip today. Social media advertising we know, and that's just through Facebook, Instagram. Social media advertising has the added advantage of you defining your demographic and exactly the age group that you want to target. And it's a good way to back up any social media initiatives that you might be running. Where do you focus your efforts? Which paid advertising is best for you? You just need to think about your business and the nature of your customers. Google paid ads and Facebook tend to be the best performers. But Google paid search is usually the biggest driver of leads to a business. But again, it depends on the business. Usually if you're selling widgets or whatever small transactional items, Facebook tends to be very good for that sort of thing. Reviews, we spoke about reviews before. You really need to be thinking about your reputation, and that saying really resonates with me. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about it that way, you will do things very differently. That's by Warren Buffett. And these are the different types of review sites. Again, it depends on your business. If you're very product oriented, then Trustpilot and Product Review .com are very good, or Choice. But then if you are a professional services business, Google My Business tends to work very well for you, as well as Facebook reviews. Why do they matter? Google is looking for those reviews. Google looks to other review sites as well, not just its own, but it looks to other review sites for how trusted or trustworthy a business you are. It can actually impact and improve your position within Google if you've got a lot of very positive reviews. They will also, so this is what we talked about with Google My Business before, your reviews can be showcased there within your Google My Business listing. And you become a trusted business, and not only will you have the ability to rank better within Google, but from a sales point of view, people will buy from businesses that others have trusted. So they take others' word for how trustworthy a business you are. So to get started, so sign up to all the relevant sites, encourage reviews from the right people through the right channels. Don't incentivize for 5-star reviews. I know at the very least with Google, you can get penalized for for giving a discount or whatever just so that people can give you a 5-star review. It's supposed to be an open marketplace, and it's supposed to allow people to leave reviews on their own accord based on their experience. But we can be cheeky about it, and if someone has had a great experience with us in our business, then we ask them to leave a review. QR codes have all of a sudden found their place. They've been around for years, but only because of the circumstances of the last year, people have gotten used to QR codes, and they've gotten used to scanning them easily. So if you're a business that interfaces with clients quite often, create a QR code that leads straight to your Google review or to your Trustpilot review or Facebook review, and encourage them to leave you a review. And then that way you can proactively improve your online reputation. The alternative is to sit on your laurels, not chase any reviews, and then inevitably one day someone is going to be unhappy with your service because we can't please everyone. They'll jump on and they'll leave you a 1-star review, and then you're trying to play catch up. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. We've always believed that in our business. Content. So content marketing is a very important part of your website and your online presence. It's the heart of most successful campaigns. Start with understanding what your customers are searching for, the keywords that they're typing in, and then create the content around that. Because what that does is, if you talk about a particular topic enough in different ways, then it builds you up as an authority on that topic. It underpins every SEO campaign that we run, is underpinned by a great content marketing strategy. And you're putting material out there that your customers can potentially stumble across and read, and then you influence them oftentimes well before they've decided that they need a solution to their problem. So content tends to get access to clients at a much earlier stage in the buying cycle. Analytics. Now, a little word on analytics. Analytics is very important because if you don't know how you're performing, if you're not measuring the success of your campaigns, then how do you know it's working? How do you know what you need to do next? We often will use analytics to help a client decide whether social media is working best for them, or Google AdWords, or SEO, etc., or any other offline campaigns that they might run. We'll often put a phone number on a brochure for a client, and we'll track all the phone calls coming in. So understand what success looks like for you, because if you know what you want to get to, you know what your destination is, then it makes every step that you take along the way, every move that you make within your campaigns, help you lead to achieving those goals. Understand which questions you need to be asked, and how to collect the required data. So data points are so important, but understand how to collect that data across your different channels. And don't ignore metrics that are harder to measure, for example, brand awareness. A word on that: brand awareness is measured by impressions, and Google Analytics has the ability to show you how many people are looking at your brand, and so does Facebook for that matter. On average, marketers use 12 or more distinct tool sets for analytics. They're very fragmented data, and it makes it very hard for them to see the big picture. So consider integrating with existing systems and reporting processes when introducing new platforms. So keep it simple. I mentioned Google Analytics. Google Analytics is basically Google's reporting tool. Google Analytics tells you what action people are taking on your website. It also tells you where they've come from, whether they've come from social or organic search or paid search or directly to the website. There's about 30 million websites worldwide that are using Google Analytics, and it's awesome. Like, it gives you a breakdown of the users, the audience that's coming through to your site, what behavior they're taking, which pages they're entering the site, which pages they're exiting. It's quite powerful. But it can be a beast of a tool. And for the average business owner, it's hard to navigate. So we have our own dashboard that brings all of these different tools together. So we can bring Facebook Analytics, Google Analytics, and all the different social media platforms all into the one report. And finally, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. I do really appreciate all of your time. I hope you've gotten something out of today, even if it is one thing. We will create a recording of this. Let us know if you want a copy. And look out for our next email. We'll let you know when our next webinar will be on. We'll likely be focusing it on SEO. Thanks, guys, and have a great week, and we'll see you next time.